want to do whatever it takes to win. We want a championship, whatever it takes. I don't care about the dollar amount. Go out and get the players you need. And it's an open checkbook. And there aren't too many places in the country that have that type of financial support where you have someone like Phil Knight with unlimited funds to say, hey, whatever it takes, I will make sure it happens. And when you have those type of dollars in NIL in a situation where there's no limits, no cap, you can go out and overpay guys and take care of players right when they're coming out of high school, which will allow you to keep them on the roster. They're going to be financially set. And then you have the depth to be able to deal with the injuries and the attrition that come throughout the course of the football year. And I think these other coaches who are used to having things their way, used to having the power, now that Oregon's in the picture, they don't like it because they got a new one coming in and infringing upon their territory. And I love that because these coaches, they're ultra competitive and they're very petty when they have to be when it comes to what they want and what they're pursuing.
Well, there's no doubt, Chad, that these blue bloods have had it their way for a long, long time. And they're accustomed to sitting down at the poker table and having the most chips and the most money in their pocket. And now when they find out there's somebody out there with a blank check, somebody out there who's a great recruiter anyway, even without all that money to back them up, that's pretty scary to these guys. I wouldn't even be surprised if it didn't push some sort of legislation through pretty soon with a cap on NIL of some sort. It's just there's so much, these guys are trying to protect their position. They've been on top a lot of times. And we know, everybody knows who I'm talking about, the Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Georgia. That group has been on top for so long, and they don't want some new guy coming in and taking over. And I think they're real frightened about it right now.
Yeah, well, I can tell you one thing. There's not going to be any limits. I don't see a way that they're going to be able to set a spending limit or a cap on it, only because it'll probably get shot down in the courts, because if you set a cap, then you're placing a limit on what a college athlete or a student athlete can be able to earn on their name, image, and likeness, and I don't think that would hold up in the courts. Plus, even though Georgia or some of these other top-notch schools may not have the type of money that Phil Knight has, they still have big-time donors with big-time money, and they want to be able to spend big when they need to be able to go out and get the players that they want. They just don't like it when someone new and flashy is coming into their conference and trying to take over. They hate it because they want it. They want what they want. And now you've got Oregon in there who's confident. They've got the national brand now, and they got the backing of Nike and Phil Knight, which does give Oregon an advantage. And I think for Phil Knight, isn't it just smart business? If you're operating in a system where there are no limits and you can spend whatever is necessary to get the job done and you've got the money to do it, why not be aggressive, right? That's just smart if you're Phil Knight.
Yeah, especially in the position he's in where he's been contributing a long time, over the last several years, how much money he's
trying to get the payoff.
Yeah, he wants to see some receipts now. So I think he's wise to take advantage of the situation. This is a situation that's never occurred before. It's never been legal to do what they're doing now, and they're maximizing the opportunities, and I see nothing wrong with that. It's just the way the games are being played now. And if you don't like it, don't do it. Just go ahead and sit down and take all your losses, because that's what's going to happen. If you're not paying them now, long term, you're not going to win.
And what is the most interesting part to you to a brand new college football season where we've got all these teams in new conferences and we have the expanded playoff? Like, what are you looking forward to watching the most? What are you most curious about as we get ready for this uncharted territory in college football?
Well, Chad, I usually say the first game of the season because I want to see what it looks like. But unfortunately, now these teams aren't playing anybody in the first 2 or 3 games of the year. So I have to say I'm looking forward to the first conference game, no matter who it's against, because I want to see what these teams look like on the field with at least comparable programs in the same conference. I'm really looking forward at Oregon to see the new quarterback, and Dylan Gabriel is a guy that I've long wanted to see in person. I don't know if I'll get that chance, but he looks like he's going to make Oregon really good.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I'm a big fan of Dylan Gabriel. Great teammate, great leader, very smart, accurate with the football, great in the run game. He basically can do everything that Bo Nix did, and in college, just as productive and he's the type of leader that you want. And you hear the way Dan Lanning talks about him, the connection that they have. He's recruited him before. I just don't think you can ask for much more when Bo Nix is moving on to the NFL and you're sitting there needing a quarterback to come in and be the captain of a team that's got a chance to win a national championship. You can't ask for much more than Dillon Gabriel because he's got the experience. He'll be able to step in without any type of hitch in his giddy up and get the job done. And players gravitate to people like Dillon Gabriel because he's the first one on the practice field, usually the last one to leave. He sets the example. He plays his tail off. And, oh, by the way, he's going to make everyone around him better. And I think players gravitate to guys like Dillon Gabriel. And it's exciting to watch. And I can tell you as a Sooner fan, the last 2 years have been a super blast because of Dillon Gabriel. And Duck fans, it'll take a game or two and they're going to fall in love with him. But here's the schedule for Oregon. They open up against Idaho, and then they play Boise State back-to-back weeks at home. Then they travel to Oregon State in the Civil War to take on the Beavs on Saturday, September 14th. After that, bye week. And then they jump into the conference schedule at UCLA, home against Michigan State as Jonathan Smith makes his return to Oregon. And then Saturday, October 12th, home game against Ohio State. That's big time right there. Big time.
Yeah, I don't see any reason they shouldn't be undefeated when they play host to Ohio State. That's for sure.
Well, you would expect them to be.
Yeah.
And then after that, they have to travel and play a Friday game on the road at Purdue. So we'll see if there's any type of letdown. And then they play Illinois at home before they travel to Michigan to take on the Wolverines. Then they get Maryland at Wisconsin, bye week, and then they finish up against Washington. So already you can take a look at the schedule, and you can see the heavy hitters there. It's going to be, it's going to be freaking awesome, man. But that game, one of the games of the year, October 12th, Autzen Stadium, the Ohio State Buckeyes are going to be in town, and that is going to be one hot ticket. In fact, you and Burkhart were looking it up, right? The prices to get into that game already off the charts.
Yeah, they last time we looked, there were GA tickets, general admission tickets, online, secondary market, over $2,000. And those
Over
aren't
$2,000.
Those aren't good seats either. You know, not
General
certainly not the
admission.
best. Yeah,
Over $2,000 on the secondary market.
yeah.
Yikes.
People want to see that game. And this is,
All right.
this is weeks before the game. Who knows what they're going to go for later?
All right, we've been talking about this. Jim Harbaugh is now paired up with Justin Herbert, a former Oregon quarterback, a guy that we both respect a great deal. Great quarterback for the Chargers. And there's nothing better than a Harbaugh getting behind a microphone, Godfather. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, there's always some. And it's usually totally unpredictable.
How can a guy that smart and so good at his job be so kooky? How's that possible?
I don't know. They say that those geniuses are often a little bit quirky.
Well, we're going to hear from Jim Harbaugh next as the Chargers open up their camp. He's a strange one, and we got a lot more football to get to. We got the latest on TNT, Amazon, the NBA, and inside the NBA. What's going on there? As you might imagine, Charles Barkley and company in high demand, and that could drive up the price if you want to land those guys for your pre- and post-game coverage. That's Dwight. I'm Chad. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, Godfather. Last year for Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel, he completed 69% of his passes. He threw for over 3,600 yards, averaged 9.5 yards per completion, 30 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. And on the ground, he had 373 yards, averaged 4 yards a carry, and had an additional 12 touchdowns on the ground for Oklahoma, including a 44-yard burst. I mean, that's what I like about him when you compare him to Bo Nix and what the Ducks had last year. Very similar, where both guys are very mobile. Dylan Gabriel is an aggressive runner using his legs. He's very strong. He's a shorter guy, but very stout, especially in the red zone when it comes to using him in those zone read type situations. But when it comes to passing, high percentage passer. He's going to put the ball where it needs to be. He can fit it into tight windows. He makes good decisions, and he gets rid of the football quick. But when things break down and he has to create something or buy some time, he's got the ability to do that. Really, the only difference is he's a lefty and Bo Nix was a righty. But, I mean, it's the big-time production, the leadership, and you heard the way Dan Lanning talked about him. But that's what I'm excited about for the Ducks. But I really think that he's a more aggressive runner. So if they choose to utilize him more in the run game than they did Bo Nix, I think that can make the offense even more diverse and put the defense in some very precarious situations, especially when you get in the red area where the field gets tighter and it's tougher to score. It's nice to have a quarterback that can, put his shoulder pads down and pick up a couple extra yards.
Yeah, there's no question about that. That's the college game right now, too. There are a lot of teams with quarterbacks who can run option or just basically run to keep a play alive, and he certainly has the mobility and the toughness, I think, to do that. He's going to be spectacular for them, giving all the other weapons that they have. They've really loaded up. Their offense should be spectacular.
No question about it. He was asked today at Big Ten Media Day about the decision when his time was up at Oklahoma and it came time to choose a different school. Let's take a listen to that.
Yeah, it's a lot. Definitely a journey, to say the least. But just been a fun one, and I think when that decision ultimately came about, it was competing for a national championship, being around guys who are like-minded and can help support and kind of match same energy. And then lastly, just being in an environment that has a high explosive offense, and what they did last year, what they were bringing back and what they wanted to bring in. And then of course being at Oregon, we have a very clear vision of what we want to accomplish. So it was an easy decision for me, probably the easiest decision of my life, and just a lot of fun through this 7 months.
All right, there's Dylan Gabriel. Well, see, this is what's great, Godfather, is that Dylan Gabriel took time to make the right decision, and he wanted to be in a place where he could showcase his abilities, because keep in mind, he does want to win a national championship, and he wants to be the best for the Oregon Ducks he can be, but he's got extra motivation. Like Bo Nix, like Michael Penix, he's coming back to school because he wants to elevate his draft profile. I think the reports. He was looked at being maybe like a 7th-round draft pick if he were to come out this year. So now he's coming back, and he's going to want to showcase to NFL scouts all the different traits that he brings to the table and what he can do, because the question marks are always going to be there with, does he have a strong enough arm for the NFL? Or what about the lack of size in terms of his height? Those question marks are going to be there. So you're not going to find a more motivated guy to come out and play at his very best, because he's trying to enhance his draft stock. And I think that's the perfect combination when you talk about motivated player, a lot of talent, great players around him with the roster that the Oregon Ducks have, and then you've got a guy who's going to go out there with every reason to play at his very best. I mean, that's what you want, motivated players with talent going out there doing everything they can to showcase what they can do.
Yeah, I like his experience level too, Chad. He's played a lot against good teams in big games. He's not going to run away from the pressure or anything like that. He's proven himself, at a big-time school, big-time football school. So he doesn't need to come in and establish anything. He can just come in from the get-go and do what he does. And I think for a quarterback, man, that confidence, and the confidence comes from experience. All of those things help out, and then it provides great leadership. And he should be a great leader for them, even though it's his first year on campus.
He has started 49 games in his college career over the course of his 5-year career that includes stops at UCF and Oklahoma. 49 games he started.
Yeah.
You can't put a price tag on that. 49 games.
Well, we saw
And when you
what
take the field in that situation, you know what to expect. You understand what the defenses are trying to do. The moment's not too big for you. Think about how the younger guys who don't have that type of experience, they can all look to him because he's been there.
Yeah, we saw what it did for Bo Nix. I mean, he had played so many games too, and it's the same thing. You're with a guy who can handle whatever he's got coming his way, and he's also going to be able to help people in this pressure cooker for the first time. He's not going to be afraid when he walks on the field against Ohio State. He's played plenty of big games. He's played Texas. He's done these things. So there's not going to be any problem. And boy, I think it puts the head coach at ease knowing he has a guy on the field like that with that kind of experience.
Yeah, there's no question. And I mentioned, he's listed at 6 feet. I would be surprised if he's 6 feet. Yeah. But he checks in at over 200 pounds, Godfather. He is a very short and stocky quarterback with very strong legs. But these athletes, especially the shorter ones, they all lie about their height, don't they? That's the game.
Yeah. I still lie about mine.
You do?
Well, of course.
Have you? Hey, my Nana always told me that she got shorter as she got older. Have you lost height as you've gotten older?
Well, I'm certainly not going to measure myself now. I'm just going to keep saying 5'10".
But do you think you're still 5'10"?
I don't think I ever was 5'10". I think
that's just your story, and you're sticking to it.
Yeah, Chad. I don't think I was 5'9" either, but that's kind of what I admitted to under pressure. Probably closer to 5'8", but yeah, I'm sticking with 5'10" right now.
All right, we go from Dylan Gabriel to one of our absolute favorites. That's going to be must-see TV throughout the course of the year, but it's Jim Harbaugh. I'm still adjusting to seeing him in powder blue with the lightning bolts all over the place, Godfather. It's very weird to me, but there are few coaches that I respect more than Jim Harbaugh in terms of his acumen, the fact that he's won and built programs no matter where he's been, San Diego, Stanford, the 49ers, and Michigan. And finally, the main reason why we wanted the Chargers to actually pony up and spend money and not be cheapos is so they could get a real coach who could come in and show Justin Herbert how to play and how to win in the NFL. Harbaugh knows how to do that. Unfortunately for Justin Herbert, and this is no disrespect to any coaches that have coached him in the past, but all the head coaches that he's had were subpar at best. It started with Mark Helfrich, then he went to Willie Taggart, then he went to Mario Cristobal, and then he went to that buffoon with the Chargers. I mean, 4 straight coaches and Anthony Lynn, if you want to put him in there, 5 straight coaches at the head coach position that were subpar at best. And now you get Jim Harbaugh, and this guy's a beauty. And like we mentioned before, guys who are geniuses, they tend to be a little bit kooky. Godfather, here is Jim Harbaugh comparing camp to being born and coming out of the womb. And I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Just the way it feels, it feels like New Year's Day, feels like being born. Feels like coming out of the womb, it's like you're in there and it's comfortable and it's safe, and now you're out, you're born, the lights are on, it's bright, got chaos, people looking at you, people talking at you, and just feels good to have it happen.
Gosh, I just shake my head. I'm sitting here shaking my head, Chad. I whatever. Whatever, Jim. If that's what it feels like to you, good. That's a different feeling than most guys have on the first day of football practice.
I've never thought of it like that. Now, when Jim Harbaugh says something like that, does he know what he's saying? Is he just making it up on the fly? Or does he really believe that the first day of camp is like being born and going out of the womb?
Wow. I don't. I think he probably doesn't think too much about this kind of stuff. He just whatever pops into his brain, he says it. And probably later on would say, I probably shouldn't have said it that way. But, we've already established this guy's a genius. He thinks differently than we do. Those guys are going to have a different brain pattern than we have because they're so creative. They're so different from the average person. They're going to say different things. I think that's one way to tell if somebody's maybe on a different level than you are. When you're not quite sure, you understand what he's saying. Or if you do understand it, you wonder why he said it. But his mind is in a different place than mine is for sure.
Yeah, I noticed that too with when I watch videos of Elon Musk talking about, space travel or different issues or different things he's working on.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to follow him because his mind is operating at a level that I can't even relate to.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way when it comes to football and Jim Harbaugh, that he really is a savant and he sees things differently than almost everyone. So when he's talking and he sounds crazy, it all makes sense to him. I want to ask you this because we're excited about this pairing between him and Justin Herbert, but for year number one this year with the Chargers, what do you think is the best thing that Harbaugh is going to bring to Herbert on the football field?
I think he's going to bring him a calmness that he hasn't had before. I think Herbert will be more calm in the pocket, knowing he's safer than he has been, because he's had to have eyes in the back, on the sides, everywhere in his head so far, because there's people coming at him all the time. He's not going to feel that as much. He's going to get blitzed, sure, but they'll pick blitzes up. They'll be better. They'll run the ball enough that he's going to get some time in the pocket. I just think he's going to be so much more secure this year, which leads to confidence, which leads to better play. And I think we're going to see that out of him. Maybe, just maybe for the first time in his career, we're going to see him calm and reasonable and, not necessarily doing things he shouldn't do.
I agree, because when I saw Brandon Staley roaming the Chargers sideline over the last couple of years, I didn't think calm. I felt like he was a guy who was in over his head trying to figure things out. And then as time went along, it's almost like he was just, testing different things to see what would work. Like there was no confidence in his decision-making. There was no pattern to his decision-making, that he was just throwing stuff up against the wall and see what would stick. And I don't think that inspires your players or instills confidence in them that you know what you're doing and that you're going to point them in the direction and show them what it takes to win games. But
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh, I never get that sense with.
I agree. And with Staley, too, Chad, he was such a gambler. And I think that's fine. But those gambles better come on your side. They better work more often than not. And if they don't, oh, man, nobody's going to feel any security around that. They're going to be concerned. They're going to think, this guy's a little bit crazy. He does some dumb stuff. And I think there must have been a lot of that going on with the Chargers. Because this guy, he made dumb decisions. And your players lose confidence in all of your decisions if you make some dumb ones.
I agree. What I've learned from watching football over the last 40 years, the things that have jumped out at me the most are when it comes to coaches and the most successful coaches is that they all have an identity. They know what they want their football team to become, and they're very committed and convicted in what they do in their belief system. And so what I mean by that is that let's take Marty Schottenheimer, for example, a great coach who was in Kansas City, had great success with the Cleveland Browns and the Chargers. That was a guy, his football teams were going to be tough. They were going to be disciplined. They were going to run the football, and they were going to play good defense, starting with being able to stop the run. Bill Walsh, his offense was designed on timing and precision. You knew the receivers like Jerry Rice were going to run precise routes. The quarterbacks were going to get the football out on time and on target, and they were going to be smart in their play design and in their execution. And you could see that on the field and the confidence the players had in that. I think Bill Belichick, his teams were going to be great in special teams. They were going to be great in defense, and they were going to have good balance on offense. And they were going to continue to play like that, and they were going to do it their way, and they weren't going to let another team dictate the way that they were going to play football on either side, which I thought was nice. And so if you go across the board, pick your coach. Bill Parcells, one of my favorite coaches of all time. I think he's amazing. Tough defense, tough-minded. His teams were going to be great in the fourth quarter, and they were going to make good decisions, and they weren't going to make dumb plays out there on the field. And you saw that over the course of time with the teams he was with, whether it be with the Giants, the Patriots, or the Cowboys. So that's what I find in coaches. And with Harbaugh, it's very simple. He wants to be physical. He wants to run the football, and he wants his teams to be very disciplined, tough, and make good decisions. And I love that because that's what you know you're going to get from the Chargers now. It's going to be a different brand of Charger football. It's not going to be what we've seen in the past. And Harbaugh has done this in San Diego, at Stanford. Every one of his stops, his teams had the same mentality and played it the same way. And look at the team, Michigan, that just won the championship. They beat Washington because, one, they had great players. Two, because they were physical, they were great on defense, and the team did not shoot themselves in the foot, and they ended up winning a championship. And that's what I like about Harbaugh, man. You know what you're going to get, and I think the players love that. They know. Just take a look at his track record. It's been the same thing at every stop.
Well, I think it's fun to look at the situation in that way, Chad, in that you look at Bill Belichick and then take a look at Andy Reid and then take a look at Sean Payton. They all know how to win. But the funny thing is they all kind of go about it in different ways. They know how they win. And some of them have different philosophies. Certainly Andy Reid is different than the other two. And you might say that so is Sean Payton. Now, I think Belichick maybe a lot like Harbaugh probably. But to me, it's what makes the game great is that there are different ways to win, and certain coaches have their own system that they make work because they know how to do that. And with Harbaugh, it's exactly like you said. Run the football. Get big up front. Get big, tough guys. Play physical. And don't do stupid things, Just play the game the right way. Be smart. No stupid mistakes. And get everybody on the same page. Be organized. It's a perfect system, really. And that's the way the game ought to be played. You don't see him doing a lot of stupid stuff. He may say stupid stuff. I don't think he does a lot of stupid stuff.
I agree. And what I love is that if you look at all these coaches, like Harbaugh, for example, the principles are the same, but based on the players that he has, you see the flexibility to adjust in terms of some of the different things that you're going to do on the field. When he had Alex Smith, they wanted to run the football. They wanted to put him in a position to throw shorter passes and make sure that he was in a position to showcase what he did best, and they allowed him to run the ball. When they got Colin Kaepernick and he led them to a Super Bowl, they put Kaepernick in a position to run the football more and showcase his athleticism. Harbaugh adjusted to the player that he had. When he was at Stanford with Andrew Luck, they still ran the football. They had Gerhardt, and they wanted to be physical, but they opened it up a little bit more because they had a quarterback that was capable of making all the throws.
And that's what they're going to do with Justin Herbert, don't you think?
They're going to open it up. They're going to run the football, number one, and they'll utilize play action, and they will protect him. But because Herbert is so good, Harbaugh will allow him to stretch his wings a little bit because Harbaugh knows he can make all the throws out there.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about these coaches. They'll adjust based on the talent they have. I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped for Justin Herbert because I like him a lot. I'm totally down.
Yeah, it's nice of him to finally land a good head coach.
A premium head coach. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday afternoon. It's Dwight and Chad. You got the Rip City Drive. Well, this is a pretty big number. We were talking about the NIL dollars and how there's some jealousy growing with Oregon and Phil Knight and the unlimited checkbook that he has given the school. Our good friend Softy from 93.3 KGR FM, he says that Jed Fish says that UW is about 30% of where Ohio State is at, Godfather, in NIL. Ohio State said that they'll spend around $20 million on NIL. 20 freaking million.
I know. I saw that. It's crazy, isn't it? Wow.
And if they're willing to spend that much, how much is Phil Knight spending on NIL with the Ducks?
I don't know.
I mean, Godfather, that's big time money.
Yeah.
Do you still have eligibility left? You should go check in and see if you can get on some of that NIL cash, man.
Yeah,
Gracious.
It's funny how I always felt fairly secure going to college and everything, but I always worried what I was going to do when I got out of college to make money. And now they're all sitting around saying, I'm making more money in college than I'll ever make in real life. You know, I mean, good luck. Unless you get into the NFL, which most of these guys don't, you'll be making the most money ever in your life playing college football.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're a college football player, and there's been a lot of great college football players who haven't been able to really hit in the NFL, stay 4 years in school. If you can get another year of eligibility from the NCAA, do it, and just cash in on the opportunity at the school of your choice. And you'll never find better years in your life than the 4 to 5 years you spend in college making that type of money.
And
it's unbelievable.
Save your money. Invest it wisely or just throw it in the bank. Whatever you do with it, don't just blow it all on stupid stuff.
Even if you had $5 million, let's say you're 25 years old and you've got $5 million in the bank after taxes and everything. Can you make $5 million last for a while, Godfather?
Yeah, I think so. Problem is, you wonder too if some of these kids realize the tax burden they're going to have making that kind of money. Because boy,
of course they don't.
Yeah, right. And if you don't pay, can you imagine the amount the IRS is going to come after you for? Holy cow!
All right, I want to ask you about the Mariners. Unfortunately, by the way, tomorrow on the show, I think we're going to have Sweet Lou Piniella. I have been communicating with him, Godfather. It's very difficult to do so, but I think Sweet Lou is going to chime in. He's very frustrated with the Mariners' play right now, and it sure sounds like he's not happy with the manager and that he feels like he might be able to offer something up to the club. So Sweet Lou Piniella likely to make an appearance on the program tomorrow. How does that sound?
Chad, don't be teasing me now. If you're talking about it, you better deliver. You better deliver. Okay. You're going to have one disappointed guy.
I promise you. I just want to know if he remembers you from your clubby days back with the Beavs.
Yeah. Well, my guess would be he'll pretend he did, but no, probably not.
All right, so the Mariners right now, the big question is, will they do something before the deadline? Mariner fans probably feel like nothing's ever going to happen with Dipoto in charge. But Ken Rosenthal put out a piece on the Mariners, and he's got a list of teams that have players who are available potentially in deals. You know, guys they could add to the lineup, maybe a bat that can come in and help get the offense on track because according to Rosenthal, Pete Alonso, Christian Walker, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. are all but off the market, but there are still players available. So for the Tampa Bay Rays, he's got multiple players listed, including Yandy Diaz and Brandon Lowe. For the Giants, he's got a few players on there, including Mike Yastrzemski. For the Angels, a couple of guys, including Taylor Ward. He's got Mountcastle from the Orioles.
Ooh.
And for the Nationals, he's got Lane Thomas and Jesse Winker. For the Marlins, Josh Bell and Jazz Chisholm Jr. So, I mean, you don't have to comment on every guy, but can you give me a guy from that list that you think might be a good one for the Mariners to pursue that could come in and maybe jumpstart the offense?
Yeah, two guys that are kind of similar, Chad. Lane Thomas with Washington, a good little ball player. Feisty, battler.
That sounds like Lou. That sounds like Lou right there.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
That's a good-looking ball player right there.
Temper, but he's a good player. He's not got a lot of pop in his bat. Jazz Chisholm, somewhat the same. There are questions about Chisholm's attitude. He can be a little selfish, I've understood. He talks a lot. Sometimes teammates don't like that. But if that's the case, I would definitely go get him because that clubhouse needs something. Maybe a guy to come in and just kick some butts around, somebody to come in and ask them what it is they're trying to do. Because Jazz Chisholm hasn't done a lot of winning in Miami. He could go there and look at the standings and say, you know what, guys, we got a chance to get there. I want some of that postseason money. And maybe do them some good. I like him. He's not having a great offensive season, but he usually does. I'd bet on him resurging a little bit if they're in the pennant race. And that's the thing with a lot of these guys, Chad. They have bad seasons when their team's not doing well. It's a little tougher to go to the ballpark for some of these guys when the team's losing all the time. So I would take a gamble on either one of those, Lane Thomas or Jazz Chisholm. They're not big guys. They're not boppers. Like Josh Bell with Miami, big guy, can hit the ball out of the park. He's also a first baseman, which they need. And so Josh Bell might be a guy, and he'll hit the ball out of the park for you a little bit.
Well, I'm still torn on what I think the Mariners may or may not do. It would not surprise me if they're sellers, but I'm with you 100%. If you're Dipoto, you have to go out and make a move. One, for the fan base. Two, for the guys in the clubhouse. I mean, you've got to show that you appreciate the efforts of this season and to help a sinking ship. Don't you have to do that?
Well,
I mean,
especially,
you can give up a little bit of assets to be able to make that happen for the guys.
Yeah, and you're close enough that, come on, go for it for once. Why not? Why not go all in? Just go for it. Bring a couple of guys in if you have to. What's the problem with that? It's like, what are you going to do 3 years from now? Wish you still had that guy in your farm system? Because a lot of those pitchers he's got down in the farm, they're blocked by the guys in the big leagues anyway. If you think they're so good, trade one of the guys in the big leagues and open up a spot for them. Otherwise, clear out the minor league guy. Right?
Yeah. Mr. Bean for the A's, if you remember back in 2014,
yes,
he got rid of Cespedes, who was a wildly popular player, and went all in to get John Lester because they needed pitching and they were going to make the postseason. They ended up losing to the Royals in the wild card game, but at least Bean sent the message that, hey, we've got a chance to make something happen. We're going to go all in. It doesn't always guarantee that it's going to work out, but at least you send the message to the fan base and the team that, hey, we're in this to try and make something happen. And I respect those type of moves.
Yeah, Billy Bean being a former player, he always understood his clubhouse. And if they didn't understand him, he'd go down there and tell them what he was doing, But he made some really smart moves, and really the unfortunate thing, he's known now as kind of the father of analytics, and that's in a lot of people's mind giving him a bad rap. But he's a brilliant baseball mind.
All right, when we come back, we got some off-season grades from Kevin Pelton on the Trailblazers' maneuvers thus far. We'll get to that. Dwight and Shad, Rip City Drive. All right, what's going on, my friends? Now 4 o'clock. Justin Myers live in Indianapolis for Big Ten Media Days today. And, of course, tomorrow be sure to tune in at 6 a.m. He'll be there live until 9 with all things Oregon Ducks, the Washington Huskies, and all the news around the Big Ten. The Mariners right now reeling. They dropped 5 of 6 to open up the second half, including 3 straight at home to the Angels. They have a travel day today. They open up a set tomorrow in Chicago against the White Sox. First pitch at 5:10. George Kirby gets the call for the Mariners. From the NFL, the Rams fear cornerback Darian Kendrick has suffered a torn ACL in practice. And Lions head coach Dan Campbell says it's all about the work.
It's all about the work. We don't live off reputation. We live off of work. And that's what's gotten us where we're at. It's been a long, hard road to get to where we're at right now, and there's a price to be paid. And
more of the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Shaq coming up right now. All right, little REO Speedwagon. I appreciate that, Michael Shacker. And we've had a good run this week of music being played on the show, Godfather. Burkhart was on point Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've heard a little REO Speedwagon. I respect that. Scotty Bethune reached out, and he asked what time I was teeing off tomorrow because he wanted to know if there's going to be any more awkward encounters in the men's restroom, because the last time I saw him at the golf course, it was one of those really awkward situations where he was in the stall and I was waiting to get into the stall, and then he walks out and we make eye contact. And I don't like to make eye contact with another dude in the bathroom. And so you just keep to yourself, mind your own business, and then get out of there. So it was very uncomfortable to see Scotty in that situation, and I'm sure it was equally uncomfortable for him to see me in that situation. It's like I don't need that in my life, prior to 7 a.m. in the morning, man. Oh,
Well,
goodness.
I saw that. It kind of sounded to me like he was looking forward to that kind of confrontation.
Well, if he wants to give me a little, butt slap on the driving range, I'm cool with that.
Okay.
That's a totally different setup.
All right.
But how do you handle that in the restroom? Are you one to talk? Like if someone asks you a question, will you respond, or are you one to just keep quiet in the restroom?
I will respond on my way out. I don't stop moving, though. I will not just stop. Come on now. I'm not stopping and having a conversation in there. No, that's not the appropriate place. Plus,
Oh,
you
my
never
gosh.
know who might be in a stall listening to you, That bothers me a little. I don't know that no thanks. I'll just keep moving.
When I worked at Health Experience, and I did for many years, I had to be on locker room duty, which meant I had to make sure the towels were picked up, keep the locker room clean, the whole deal. And what I found with older guys, they're like exhibitionists. I couldn't believe when I would go back there. I'm just trying to do my job, man. Get in, get out, and get back to the front desk. I was amazed at how many older guys, completely naked, with nothing on, as they're putting their lotion on or their aftershave or whatever they're doing, wanting to engage in full-length conversation and make eye contact with me when they're butt naked. I did not want that, but yet I walked into that on a regular basis. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Why is that normal for you to be completely naked, just having a full-on length conversation with another guy? I just trying to do my job here. Let me get in and get out. Quit trying to haggle me with questions.
It's
crazy.
That you telling that reminds me of any sports team locker room I've ever been in. Those guys have no shame whatsoever. And, I mean, they walk around. Now, I'm thinking, too, this is before to be fair, this is before the era when women came in the locker room, okay? But before that era, guys had no intention of covering up, not even with a washcloth or something. They're just parading around with nothing on at all.
Well, if I was Wayman Tisdale or Shaquille O'Neal, I would have no issue walking around naked either. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
In fact, clothes would be optional. I would want everyone to know how blessed I truly was. That's just me, though. I can only speak for myself. Oh, my goodness. I did hear that once in a Duck locker room. I can't remember the player, but it was after one of the bowl games, and he said, hey, just so y'all know, I'm about to get naked up in here. And he just let everyone know, ahead of time that he was about to get fully unclothed. And I was like, all right, man, you do you. As I'm holding my microphone. I'm just here to ask a couple of questions. You do whatever you need to do, brother. It's all good. No problems.
Well, I shouldn't. No, I'm not going to tell.
Yeah, just don't.
Minute bowl. That's all I'm going to say. Minute bowl.
All right. On that note, Kevin Pelton has got his grades out for NBA teams during the course of the offseason. And this is in regards to the Trailblazers and the moves they've made thus far. He gives them a B-, and here's what he had to say. With a full roster, the Blazers haven't made a notable move since an active first night of the draft. Portland sent out the number 14 pick, a future first-rounder, and Malcolm Brogdon to the Wizards for Denny Avdia. Then they took Donovan Clingan after the UConn center slid to number 7. Giving up more than 2 first-round picks in value was a lot for Avdia, who must maintain or beat last season's 37% three-point shooting to fit well alongside the Blazers' young guards. But Avdia and Clingan, who averaged 4.3 blocks during the NBA Summer League, should help a porous defense. So that's Clingan's assessment. And I pretty much see it the same way, Godfather. I really like the addition of Avdia because he can do everything, and I think that's going to help the team out. I also think the fact that he's a playmaker and a good shooter from downtown will help the young guards out. And then I think that grade, and because I'm not a big fan of placing a grade on players coming out of the draft, because until they play in the NBA, how do you know what they're going to become?
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to tell me what they are and giving out grades. I think that's crazy. But if Clingan is anywhere close or above what we saw at Summer League in terms of what he's going to bring to the team, that grade B-, I think, can be adjusted as the season moves along if Clingan becomes a big-time player and showcases the type of defense that we think is transferable from Summer League into the NBA. Then all of a sudden you can look back and be like, hey, Avdia's an all-around player, good playmaker, a plus defender, and then all of a sudden you got an anchor in the middle who is not just stuck to the paint but can get out and defend the perimeter a little bit and be a great shot blocker. Then I think you can look back and be like, those 2 moves right there, not bad for the Trailblazers. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think they'll both be fine. I like the draft pick a lot. The trade, I think, was a good, solid trade that, it isn't as meaningful as maybe it could be. But, yeah, again, I'm all about acquiring draft picks, and that's what I think they need moving forward. And if not for next year, a year after that, not for 2033 or something, but next year or the year after, I think, if you can get those picks, good.
And what's your sense right now? Do you think the Blazers will make more moves, unload potential veterans before the season? Or do you think this is going to be a situation where they're going to start the year with the roster as is and then look to make moves before the deadline? How do you think that's going to shake out?
Well, I know what I do, and that's I try to move the veteran players as soon as possible, but I don't see this team doing that. They tend to wait on everything. They're very conservative. They're very, I guess you could say, patient. They're not in any hurry to do anything, it seems. They've been very quiet. You don't hear them popping up in a lot of rumors. There was some Grant rumors going to the Lakers, but that hasn't amounted to anything yet. They're holding out for a couple of picks, and the Lakers don't want to do it. So that's fine. But I'm guessing they won't do anything till the season starts.
I mean, I get the sense we talked to Heiken a couple of days ago, but my guess with Joe Cronin is that he's listening right now, and he's open to making a move, but he's not going to move out one of the vets right now if the price or the value they get in return is not what he thinks it should be. That's kind of the sense I get. He's open to it, but he's not going to rush to make a move just to make a move. He wants to see if he can get better value. Is that kind of how you see it there with Cronin?
Yeah, I think so. And what worries you a little bit about that is I don't know how a lot of those guys are going to increase their value. I would be worried that their value might be as high in some cases as it's going to be. So we'll wait around and see, and he very well could be right about this. But they did acquire some of these guys as trade pieces, and eventually that is going to happen.
How about the Lakers' biggest addition this offseason so far is Bronny James?
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
No moves.
It is
no
pretty
free
funny.
agents.
I know. They can't get free agents to come there. I just don't think a lot of guys want to play with LeBron at this point of his career. I don't. He monopolizes the ball so much that it makes it difficult to play with him.
You think that's what it is? You think that's why certain players don't want to go there? Or is it because the Lakers don't really have the tools to go out and get players to come to L.A.?
Well,
It's not like they have flexibility to sign whoever they want. They just don't have that. If they're going to bring in a big player, it would have to be via trade.
yeah. Well, yeah. No, but people don't want to play there, and I think that's the case. And
Well,
yeah,
but who are you hearing that from? I mean, you're saying that specifically about LeBron. Are you hearing that around the league that players just don't want to play with him?
absolutely, yes, absolutely. I mean, look, they got him, and they got a great center playing alongside of him. They got Anthony Davis there. They're both really good, probably Hall of Fame. Well, no doubt, Hall of Fame players. Why don't people want to go there? Why aren't people taking a discount to go there? Chance to win. Heck, they can't even get out of the play-in.
No, what I'm saying is they don't have the salary cap space to offer a big-time player the money that he would want to come and join the Lakers. You know, they're very limited in what they can do, so it's not like they have a lot to offer up. The only way they can bring in a big player would be to make a trade for someone like a Jeremy Grant or any other player across the league. They don't have cash to work with, right? So it's like
but
they have nothing to
could.
offer.
Yeah, but they could clear out cap room. They could do that. They could give some of those borderline players they have, give them away and take not much back in return and improve their situation.
But they're over the cap. I mean, they're what I'm saying is they don't have a way to clear out cap room because you've got LeBron and AD making mountains of cash, right? So they're just like a lot of teams in the NBA. They're just strapped out. I don't doubt that there are players who don't want to play with LeBron. I'm just saying that the Lakers' inability to bring someone in, I don't think is because LeBron's on the team. I think it's because they don't have the flexibility to be able to offer any type of contract that someone would want to play for. That's why their best bet to try and improve their roster is a trade. That's why I'm holding out hope that because they haven't made any moves in free agency, that at some point they'll get desperate and then they can come to the Blazers with their 2 future first-round picks and make a move for Jeremy Grant. That's what I'm holding out hope for.
Maybe so.
But do you understand what I'm saying? They don't have the flexibility.
Well,
like they don't have the money to offer anyone. They can't sign anyone in free agency.
I know what you're saying. They could clear out room, though, if they really were serious. LeBron could have taken less money, but he did take some less money. They still, I think, have their mid-level. They can still do things. There are borderline players who aren't the big money guys who could help them. But those are the guys especially that don't want to go there because they know their stats are going to take a hit.
They did get Dalton Connect, who we like. So
Yeah.
you do like Dalton Connect, right? Like that's a good draft
Absolutely.
pick.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I'm just trying to find out. You say that players don't want to play with LeBron. I'm just trying to find out if that's what you're hearing from your people around the league, or
No,
if you're
of
just
course
saying
that's
that.
what I'm
If that's
hearing.
just your opinion.
No,
okay.
no. I'm hearing that. It's all over. There's a lot of people saying that. Look at the Olympic team and how it's going. Yeah, he's winning them games. He's winning them games late in the game. Subpar performances from a lot of other guys because he's dominating the ball all the time.
Well, but isn't it also a combination of the fact that you have a bunch of ball-dominant guys thrown together at the last second and they have no time together or chemistry? Doesn't that play into it as well? Or do you put all that on LeBron?
No, I think I put it on coaches. I put it on players. I put it on a lot of people for not changing the system. But Steph Curry's not, we'll see what happens with him. He has not played well so far because he's not making shots because he doesn't get the ball enough. And there's no doubt who has the ball all the time. If LeBron plays, he's like the point guard. That's the way he's always played. You don't list him as a point guard, but that's the position he ends up playing.
Well, we'll continue this discussion, and we want to get to the latest on TNT and Amazon. And maybe we'll give you a little taste of the past, which is going to be in your future. That's coming up next on the Rip City Drive. my mind insane, but Bill Barnwell of ESPN is projecting the contract offer for Purdy 5 years, $325 million, $65 million a year for Brock Purdy. I know you're big on Brock Purdy, but would you go $325 million for that guy?
No, I always thought Barnwell was just put on there to say goofy stuff like that. Somebody's feeding him that stuff to say just to be controversial. Because I don't think he would believe that with the kind of experience he has in the league. I mean, that's just way over the top, isn't it? You don't have to give him that much. You don't have to.
It's not crazy in quarterback money if you're talking about an elite quarterback, right? With the way the salary cap is going up and the type of money the league is making. I'm just telling you that I wouldn't pay big-time quarterback dollars to Brock Purdy because I don't think he's the answer at quarterback long-term. But as Barnwell points out, if he continues this level of play, my best estimate is that Purdy, his deal would come in at around 5 years and $325 million for an average of about $65 million per season. It's always possible the quarterback could take some semblance of a reduced salary to try and make life easier for the team, but after making just $2.6 million over the first 3 years of his existing deal, I'm not sure why he would be willing to cut the 49ers any slack. That's what he had to say about that.
Wow. Who's the highest paid one now, and what's he making? Is that Trevor Lawrence? Is he getting the most?
Let's see here. Wasn't his deal like 270?
I don't remember.
Trevor,
it's like the latest guy to sign always seems to be getting the most.
Yeah, and that's the way it works. Is that, you know, depending on where you come in, he got a 5-year deal worth $275 million. Trevor Lawrence. So, as the cap goes up, and the players have access to more money, and obviously Brock Purdy's timing would be perfect, but I mean, a lot of people would argue that 5 years and $275 million for Trevor Lawrence is insanity.
Yeah, it is. Hasn't done anything.
He hasn't. I do think that he has all the makings of a franchise quarterback, and I think he's going to prove that to be true. But that's where the money's going. But if you're the 49ers, and let's say he puts together another big year, and you've got to extend him, they're almost stuck. They almost don't have a choice.
Yeah, I just would have thought that, you know, $50 million a year for him would have been real nice. And I didn't think that they'd have to go any higher than that.
Well, explain that to his agent, Godfather.
Yeah, well.
Explain that to his agent, because he can turn around and look at the Trevor Lawrence deal and say, hey, my numbers are equal to his, and I've won more playoff games than he has. Right? That's how they do it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But neither one of them has got, like, a long-term resume in the NFL, that's for sure.
No. Dak Prescott could be getting set to make about $60 million a year. Yeah. It's crazy to me. Crazy. Yeah. I just wanted to check your temperature on that because you're a big Brock Purdy fan.
I am. And, you know, the thing about Prescott's going to get the huge deal, everybody's saying. That's just because he's hung around, you know, and he's played it all the way out. He's going to play it all the way out, it looks like.
Well,
I don't know if
I think
give
also
him that
part
much.
of that.
Would you give him that much? $60 million?
Who, Dak?
Yeah.
No. I wouldn't. But the problem is, if you're going to get rid of Dak, then what's the next answer? And if you're Jerry Jones and you're desperate to try and win a championship, is your best chance to unload Dak and then hope that you can draft and develop a quarterback in time for you to win a championship?
Yeah.
I mean, the Cowboys have just mishandled the situation with Dak Prescott. They should have signed him a long time ago and given him the extension so they could have gotten him in at a much more, a price that you could swallow more so than $60 million a year. But they've waited and put themselves in this type of situation. So,
yeah, the one consolation to some of these teams is if you're going to give them money, the smart play is probably get as many years on them as you can. Because the guys that are signing the short-term ones, 3 years, even 4 years, man, they're back at the table too soon, getting even more money from you. You know, and it's like if you sign them now, their salary will get passed. Somebody's going to pass them up. A lot of guys over like a 5-year span will pass them up, and they won't be making that much money compared to the other guys. But boy, if you give them like 3 years, they're going to get in on it again.
Well, I think the key is to the guaranteed money. Like, you know, like Russell Wilson signed that monster deal with the Broncos, but they had a couple of they had a way to get out of it when they did without having to give up too much. And so I think that's the key. Maybe you can sign Brock, because I'll tell you what his agent's going to do. If Trevor Lawrence is averaging 55 per, he's going to want to come in ahead of that. And so you can do that, but try to avoid, you know, guaranteeing the entire contract. Give yourself a chance to have an out if Brock Purdy's career, you know, takes a dive, right? So you can protect yourself a little bit and find a way to get out of it. But that's where we're heading with quarterback money. And that's now why you've got guys throwing out the ideas of a separate, you know, you've got your roster and then you've got your quarterback, that the quarterback could be under a separate cap. And that way teams would be better positioned to be able to pay the quarterback because they make so much money and still be able to field a roster that can go out there and contend.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So
All
Trevor
right.
Lawrence was 55, and now he would be getting 65?
Well, that's what Barnwell thinks, $65 million per.
I
Yep.
just don't see any reason to jump that lead guy by $10 million a year. You know, everybody gets a little more. Most of them aren't getting $10 million more. And you know, Purdy, I like him. I think he's a good quarterback. But, you know, that's getting into, you know, to make him the highest paid quarterback in the league. Wow, that's a little bit crazy.
Well, of course it is. Justin Herbert got 5 years, $262.5 million.
Yeah.
So you can see how it goes. Herbert comes in, he gets his deal. Lawrence comes in, he gets his deal. Oh, man, it's madness. But I don't have a problem with Herbert and Lawrence getting paid because I view them as franchise quarterbacks, guys that you can't allow to leave your team. With Purdy, I don't know where you slot him at. I know he's not Herbert or Lawrence. He's had a couple of very good years, but I would want to see more, like another season this year of Purdy putting up big numbers and producing it when it matters most before I make that type of decision, right? And that's what they're going to do. But after this season, they're going to have to make the decision. So this is a big year for Purdy. If he goes out and performs and they win a ton of games and they're back in the Super Bowl, he's going to get himself super paid. If he comes out and struggles and the 49ers realize that he's not the franchise guy, then they can look at other options and not get themselves into a tough spot with that type of contract. Now, I do want to ask you about this. You know, we've talked a lot about TNT and Amazon and how the NBA is looking to move on from TNT so they can have the power of Amazon and their streaming reach of 200 million. But the big concern of NBA fans, from what I can gauge, is the loss of inside the NBA with Kenny, Shaq, Charles, and Ernie Johnson. But it sounds like not just Amazon, but also ESPN. Both networks have major interest in both programs, right? Like Amazon would step up and try to make that happen. Obviously, that would give Ernie Johnson an avenue because they'd be on a streaming platform, and it's not another television network. ESPN has interest. And you know what this happens? When you got two networks who are vying for their services, that's going to drive up the price, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to give all those guys a chance to make some big-time money talking basketball and having a good time. How do you see that one?
It just seems to me out of character for ESPN to jump in on that. That's, you know, they're not spending a lot of money right now on you know, anybody other than Stephen A. Smith, and they're in financial straits right now. And so I don't know. It made a lot of sense to me for Amazon because they've still got to drag a lot of people off regular television, broadcast TV over to streaming. And so they need to make that kind of impact for them. I think it'd be a beautiful thing. I think it'd be a really smart play for them to bring all those guys over, do what you can with them. I heard something interesting today. Dan Byer was talking about it on the show before ours, and they were making the case that a couple of cases. Number one, that Barkley and Ernie may be a little too old for the demo that's going to streaming and that's cutting the cord and all that. And the other side of it, the NBA may not want Charles back on all the time talking about how bad their product is. And that made some degree of sense to me because I know how these leagues are. They don't like discouraging words. They don't like people getting on their own shows and talking about, oh, that was a terrible, I didn't even watch the second half. It was terrible. You know, that's not something they encourage.
Well, here's an example of why we need this group together and why I encourage Amazon to step up and offer up whatever cash is necessary to make it happen.
Like, who made your bracelet? That looks like an aggressive.
You know, I got this bracelet from a guy in the steam room back in Arizona.
You got what? Time out.
Hey, Kenny, quit asking questions,
You
man.
got the bracelet from a
dude
guy in the steam room. Explain, please. Please explain.
I saw this guy wear this in the steam room, and I noticed the dark.
So what, did you ask him
Are you
for it?
kidding me?
And I did. We were talking. I said, that's a nice bracelet. And I said, I had never seen it before. And I asked him. I didn't ask him for it. So we get out of the steam room. We get dressed. He comes over. He said, man, you can have the bracelet.
Wait, I had a question. Were towels on or off in the
Towels were on.
Okay, that's all I'm saying, man.
Towels were on.
Okay, man.
Hey.
Yo, get out. That is, yo, he got me up. He's like, ask him about the bracelet.
Wait,
so I didn't know the story. Oh, my God. Towels were on, Chuck.
Towels were on. But he was a real nice guy. He gave me
Obviously, he was real nice. Oh, yeah. In the steam room.
And I guess
Was it a steam or a sauna?
This is sand. It was sauna.
Okay.
You know,
No, it was a steam room actually.
How'd you see that in the steam room?
Bulldogs in the steam room and bulldogs.
Oh, this is like sand from the Black Sea.
Yeah.
And this is.
You know what? Nobody's
shout him
listening.
out his name.
Nobody cares.
America's greatest makers. That's a great bracelet, man.
Hey man, y'all can't make me feel bad. We had our towels on and 2 men talking in the steam room. Y'all haters, dude.
I'm not saying him anything wrong. I just
You ever see yourself admitting, yeah, the guy in the steam room gave me his bracelet? I don't see that.
You don't tell nobody else that story, Chuck. Too late. You're too honest,
Y'all
man.
haters,
That's your
man.
problem, man. You
Hey man, whatever your name
couldn't
is.
just say, hey, look,
I don't even know his name.
I don't know his name.
And then he gave you a bracelet in the steam room as he was rubbing oil on your back.
so
You don't even know his name. Oh man, the guy's rubbing oil on your
No,
back.
he wasn't rubbing oil on
He
me.
gave you his bracelet.
No, he was rubbing all over my back, man. Hey man, whatever your name is, thank you for my bracelet.
Get out of here, man. There you go. Go to commercial. Ernie.
lost a cup of water out here.
Oh my God! Look at this. You got me crying, man.
Godfather, we need that in our life, man. We need that stuff.
I don't disagree at all. I love the show. These guys are great guys.
Have you ever asked a guy in the sauna or the steam room for a bracelet?
I don't talk to people in the sauna and the steam room.
Oh, my goodness.
I just kind of keep to myself.
Do you think the NBA is that sensitive where they wouldn't want the truth teller and Charles Barkley to be on the air calling out the teams for being bad and for putting out bad games, or not wanting to tune in because they got the Pelicans against whoever they're playing? Are they that sensitive, Godfather?
Oh, they're real sensitive. They're real. You don't know how many times they talk to like individual team broadcasters about saying certain things, and you know the teams themselves are sensitive.
No, I
The
do.
league
I'm
is
well aware.
Sensitive.
Yeah, I'm well aware of the memos they put down. Yes.
But with that many million people watching that show and hearing those guys talk about how bad a game is, or how bad the play is, and how teams are worse than they used to be 10 years ago, all that stuff that they talk about. I'm not saying they're not right. I agree with them 90% of the time. But, I don't think the league's real keen on it. Now, would the league stop somebody from hiring them? They wouldn't do that, I don't think. That would be a problem. But
well, the good thing is Charles Barkley is far from – no one's ever going to come to him and tell him what he can and can't say. But, you see, here's the fallacy and all that. There's one simple reason. The main reason why people tune in to listen to Charles Barkley on that show – it's very simple, Godfather, because he says exactly what he thinks. Whether you agree or disagree, he just speaks his mind. And I'm telling you what, we're arriving at this place in society where people no longer share what they truly think. They don't want to share their thoughts. They don't want to get into a conversation. They don't want to be real because they're afraid of being canceled or being criticized or being called out because they don't fit the mold or believe or see things the way everyone else does. And the problem is when you have programs like that, and people are just spitting out the memos that are being sent down to them, it's not entertaining. It's not fun to watch because you're not getting anything real. And that's what I love about Charles. Even when I disagree with him, he's real. He's telling you exactly what he thinks.
Yeah.
And I respect that. And that's what makes that show so good.
I agree. And The people that tune in to see them are watching the games too. They do bring ratings, not just for the halftime or pregame or postgame, but for the games.
Yes, and they're tuning in. Here's the bottom line. You're tuning in and you're spending more time consuming NBA content. So you're being entertained. You're watching some of the game. You're getting introduced to different players that maybe you don't know because you're spending more time listening to their show, which is about basketball. And then you get the humor and everything else. Mm-hmm. And if, I don't want the roses all the time. I want criticism. I want people to call it how they see it. And we watch enough NBA games. There are teams that are really good, and there are teams some nights that are just awful. And it is what it is, but at least someone's telling me the truth, and I respect that. When I know someone's being straight with me and tell me how they feel, I respect it. The problem is we just don't have a lot of that on television now or in media, people just being truth tellers. It sucks. I don't like it. And even now with teams, right? There used to be broadcasters who worked for teams in the past who were openly critical of their own team if they felt it was warranted. But now you get these situations where owners don't want that. They want cheerleaders. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because I think that robs the fans of the true experience because they end up being cheerleaders more than they do, people are just wanting to share their mind on what they're seeing, right? Because it's a basketball team. Not everything that they do on the floor is going to be good. They're going to have bad nights. They're going to have situations that are rough, and you should be able to paint that picture to your fans without being told what to say. It drives me crazy.
I agree.
You didn't grow up with stuff like that?
No, I was taught an entirely different way. And that's disappearing, unfortunately. I do think there are more homers now than there ever have been in the past.
Well, it's
Don't
unfortunate.
You think, Chad, really?
Yeah, I mean, if you go through and just pick your broadcast across the league in a lot of different sports, and you're going to get some version of the same. And that's especially for the younger broadcasters. There's still some of the older guard out there that will call it how they see it. Like Ian Eagle doing Nets games. He's not a cheerleader. There are some guys out there, but for the most part, with the younger guys coming in, they want the job, and so therefore they're going to follow the line in terms of what the company wants. And I understand that too. I get it. But for the listener and the experience of listening or watching the game, I just don't think it's the same if you're not getting if you're constantly getting the cheerleading, right? That's just not. I just don't think that's the way it should be. But I don't think we're going to come back from that.
It's going to be very difficult.
I mean, do you like Barkley? Are you down with Barkley on TV? I know you like covering him because he would talk to you and he was very insightful, but do you like him on television?
I love him on television. He's a great guy. He is, in person, the same guy you see on TV. He's the same guy. He doesn't change at all.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday. Dwight and Chad with you, Rip City Drive.
people.
Well, Godfather, I spent the last 5 minutes during the break listening to Charles Barkley rip on the bigger women down in San Antonio.
Yeah. That was a fairly famous rant.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I need more of Charles Barkley. We need Amazon to step up, man. We need it.
Move on. Of course, we're getting the local flavor here. You guys want to see something amazing?
Yes.
Because I've seen this. That's a big old
That's a
guitar
big
right
guitar.
there. A guitarone. It's a guitarone, is what they call it.
So anything that's bigger, you just put a roan on it?
Yeah, it's a chacarone.
That's a
is here.
chacarone. Chacarone. Or I would say women are roan.
You would not say that.
There you go. There's Barkley. He can't help himself when it comes to San Antonio. Unfortunate news for the Trailblazers. It's great for Jim Moran, but he's going to join the Kings as an assistant coach to Mike Brown down there. That's a good opportunity for him, Godfather.
I think so, too. Yeah, at this point of Moran's career, it doesn't serve him well to stay with the same organization. I think this is the point where you get around the league, get to know more people, expand your web of influence a little bit so that when a head coaching job is available, all of a sudden your name pops up on the list of people interviewed. And Jim Moran, I think, is good enough to be a head coach in the NBA. He has all the qualities, and I wish him a lot of luck. He's been really good to the Blazers, and happy to see him get what looks like a really good opportunity working for Mike Brown.
Well, this move here kind of throws a wrench in our plans. We thought that, if the Blazers, we don't expect Chauncey Billups to be back after the upcoming season, but if they were to let Billups go before the end of the year, Moran would have been the perfect guy to step in and be the interim coach for the rest of the year until they end the season, and then Joe Cronin can go out and pick his own coach.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's not going to happen. So I don't really know now who the next in line would be, internally at least.
They also went out, the Trailblazers, and added Ronnie Burrell to their coaching staff. And Burrell joins the Trailblazers after most recently spending the past season as an assistant coach with the Brooklyn Nets. Prior to joining Brooklyn, Burrell spent the 22-23 season as the head coach of the Nets' NBA G League affiliate, the Long Island Nets. Burrell led Long Island to a 23-9 record overall in the regular season, tied for the second-best record in the G League, and earned G League Coach of the Year honors. So Burrell, I think as you told me during the break, he's one of those young and up-and-comers who, maybe you bring on board and could be one of those diamonds in the rough that can help, grow and be a part of the staff moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that's worth, at this point, worth a try, at least see. And maybe he's good working with, I don't know, bigs or point guards or whatever. They have a lot of players that need development, and if he's a developmental guy and good with a particular position or type of player, this would be a real good move.
But isn't it difficult right now? Like, I would imagine if Billups, assuming that he's not back after this upcoming season, and then Joe Cronin goes out and hires, the head coach, isn't that coach going to want to bring in his own assistants, right? Like, it's hard to imagine they would keep any there'd be any holdovers from this regime with a brand new coach coming in, right?
Yeah.
How often does that happen?
That's the exact way I would see it, Chad. That's why going out and bringing an assistant in right now, he's probably working with a one-year contract because you don't want people under contract past Chauncey Billups' time. And so, and there are some organizations who make a new coach keep a few assistants from the previous regime. I don't know what they would do here, but my guess would be he's either working on a one-year deal or a two-year thing with the second year not guaranteed or at a reduced rate.
All right, we talked about LeBron being a flag bearer at the Olympics in Paris, and that's something that's voted on by all the different Olympians that are representing the United States of America. I did want to ask you, because you're a big tennis fan, what do you think about Coco Gauff being a flag bearer for Team USA in Paris?
Well, I think it's a nice move. She's certainly come into her own as a tennis player, a pro tennis player. She's come on, and other than playing at Wimbledon, a court she doesn't seem to handle very well, she's played really well and an up-and-comer in the tennis world. And I think very popular with other tennis players. That kind of, goes hand in hand with being elected by your peers to carry that flag. So it'll be LeBron and Coco carrying those flags out in front of the rest of the crew.
I mean, that is a big honor, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Has to be. Absolutely. That and being the person who lights the torch at the very end of that torch run, that's a big honor, too.
Would you rather be a flag bearer or the guy that lights the torch?
Well, if I were getting to light the torch, it would mean I was a pretty special person. I would like to be that special person. I never would be, but that's like the games in Atlanta. The guy who lit the torch was Muhammad Ali. And
Were you there to see Ali light the torch?
I was at that Olympics. Unfortunately, at the Oregonian, we had one media ticket for that opening ceremonies, and I didn't happen to end up with it.
They didn't have a vote amongst the Oregonian staff like the flag bearers to determine who got to go to that ceremony?
Well, if they'd had a vote, I probably wouldn't have gotten to go that way either, Chad. I mean, I was the sports guy. We had Steve Dean there. He was the big cheese. He was the Metro columnist, and he went, of course, and good for him. He got to go, and I watched it on television, actually. I didn't know ahead of time. If I would have known, I would have made a bigger fuss. If I'd have known Ali was going to be the guy. But I honestly figured, I don't know if I want to sit through that whole parade of athletes onto the field, because it's a kind of long, tedious deal, and I wasn't too concerned about missing it. Then I see him light the torch, and I thought, oh, man, would I have liked to have been there for that, because it was a big, big moment.
All right, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Here, from the Sports Business Journal, here's the going back to Inside the NBA crew real quick. According to Sports Business Journal, in terms of Amazon's interest, they say, quote, Amazon, which will officially stream NBA games starting in 2025, has interest in pursuing members of TNT's revered Inside the NBA studio show, according to Jay Marine, global head of sports for Prime Video. Marine told SBJ that Amazon Prime Video used Inside the NBA as a model for its Thursday Night Football pregame, halftime, and postgame show. And should the TNT cast of Barkley, Smith, O'Neal, and Ernie Johnson become available, obviously there'll be a lot of interest, and we'll just have to see how that plays out. So, I mean, one thing that's good for those guys, Shaq, Ernie, Kenny, and Charles, if they want to pursue it, there's going to be big-time money offered up to have those guys back together again. I mean, so it's great for them as individuals to be able to have that bargaining power, Godfather.
Yeah, Chad, don't you think of all of those guys, the one most likely to come back, if the money's right, is Charles?
Yes, he needs money. He likes money.
Yeah.
And he's so good on TV. The great thing about Charles is that even if he's on a different program, not working with the crew that he's so accustomed to working with, I think he could shine through and be a star, even if he's paired with other media types. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like, I think he will succeed no matter where he goes.
Oh, yeah. No, anybody can work with him. Just turn his mic on and let him go. He's going to be the same no matter what show he's on.
I've heard him on so many different shows with so many different people, just in interview settings, and he's great with everybody because that's Charles. He's a true talent.
It's good
All right,
to
we'll
have
keep things.
He needs a straight man, though. Ernie's perfect for him, setting him up. And then you got Shaq over there who he can make fun of. So that works really well.
There's no question. Rip City Drive, we continue here on 620 Rip City Radio, your home of the Portland Trailblazers. All right, it's now 5 o'clock, Chad here. The Portland Trailblazers have lost longtime assistant Jim Moran, who has taken an assistant coaching job on Mike Brown's staff with the Sacramento Kings. The Trailblazers have also added Ronnie Burrell to their assistant staff, and he comes over from the Brooklyn Nets. The Mariners have dropped 5 of their last 6 to open up the second half, including 3 straight at home to the Angels. They'll open up a set in Chicago tomorrow against the White Sox. That first pitch at 5:10. George Kirby will get the call for Seattle. Justin Myers on the road in Indianapolis. Be sure to tune in tomorrow morning from 6 until 9 as he focuses in on the Ducks and the Huskies. It's presented by Dick Hanna Dealerships. Dick Hanna believe in nice. The Rams fear cornerback Darian Kendrick suffered a torn ACL in practice. More of the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad coming at you right now. We've got goodies to give away. Your chance to win is next. All right, Godfather, we are men of the people, and we've got 2 pairs of tickets to give away for Chris Jansen, who's going to be at the Clark County Fairgrounds on August 4th. Are you ready to do a giveaway, my friend?
Yes, let's do it right now.
Hey, don't lose your voice. Settle down, all right? I know what happened the other night.
I'm going to blow
We started
it out
yelling
today.
out names, and you went crazy. Yeah, we started yelling all the names.
Yeah.
What was the one that Raider Mike brought up yesterday? Rhododendron!
Yeah. The big
You
town
can only know
rhododendron.
Government camp.
You only know rhododendron if, like, when you mention that town or reference rhododendron, then I know you're legitimate Oregonian. Period. Because the only way you would know that is if you've taken the trip up to Mount Hood. And what was the other one? Is it Zigzag?
Zigzag.
Zigzag.
Welch's. Yeah, there's a few of them up that way.
All right, Chris Jansen going to be live in concert August 4th at the Clark County Fairgrounds. If you'd like to go, call now. First 2 callers through will get a pair of tickets for Chris Jansen. 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Fire away with your phone calls. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. First 2 callers through right now will get a pair of tickets for Chris Jansen live in concert at the Clark County Fairgrounds coming up on August 4th. All right, Dwight, do you like watching on Sundays for NFL games? Do you tune into Red Zone frequently?
Yeah, I do, actually. Unless there's one of those teams that I follow closely, then I just watch their game. But I do like Red Zone, always have. Really does keep you up on what's going on.
Yeah, what I like about Red Zone, if I'm not tuned in to a Bronco game or locked in on what the Broncos are doing, and I try to have multiple screens going at the same time. But what I like about Red Zone is that they do a great job of just jumping, bing, 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 back and forth to all the different games that are going on, whether it's the morning slate or the afternoon slate. So it gives you a snapshot of what's happening in every single game that's taking place. And I like that type of fast-paced action when you're tuned into Red Zone. So I think it's a quality product. But it sounds like, according to reports, that ESPN is going to bring a Red Zone style program to their NBA coverage and have NBA Red Zone. And I got to be honest with you, Godfather, I think this is a genius idea because now you can sit home at night and you can be able to tune in and watch the NBA Red Zone and get a snapshot from all the different games that are going on. And you know how it is during the course of the regular season. On any given night, you could have, 8, 9, 10 games going, and now it gives you a chance to tune in and have an idea of what's going on in all the different games. And I like that because when you're trying to keep track of so many different things that are going on in the league, to have a channel dedicated to that with the same type of format that we get with the NFL Red Zone, I think this is a good decision by ESPN. They haven't been known for a lot of good decisions of late, but I like this idea. Bring it on.
Yeah, I kind of like it too, Chad. It'll be interesting to see. It's not like basketball's not exactly like football where there's a red zone, and as soon as a team gets in the red zone, you try to get to those games. I don't know what the point is with an NBA game where you go and watch that game live for a bit. Maybe it's just in the last 2 minutes. Maybe it's after somebody's done something spectacular and you replay it. I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm intrigued enough by it to watch and see.
well, maybe it's a situation that they continue to get a feel for it as the season, moves along. But I definitely think that. I think if you go with the red zone style, final 2 minutes of each half, I think it would be big. Maybe if a team's going on a big run and there's been a big turnaround in the game, I think you could go there. Or on a night where you have a player that's maybe going to hit the 50-point mark, or maybe someone's challenging 60, or you got maybe Lucas having a big night. I think those are the type of games that you could, move to keep an eye on what the player's doing. Those type of big moments. The other thing that would be fun, too, is as you get after the All-Star break and you get into that final stretch of the regular season, when you got the games that really do matter, when you're talking about playoff jockeying or teams jockeying for playoff position, when the games become bigger, I think it would be fun to watch in those type of situations end of year when you got bigger games with playoff positioning on the line. I think that'd be kind of fun to tune in and see what's happening.
Who would you want of the current ESPN hosts? Who would you want to do the hosting on that show? Because that's a big deal. I mean, that's complicated. A lot of moving parts on that.
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, I don't know. I got to think about that a little bit. Maybe it's someone we don't know that you can go and find that would be the right personality and have the right energy to be able to bounce around from game to game to game. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you got to find the right talent to come in and be able to do that. Maybe it's not someone that's on their current staff. I think what you can do is you find your host and find the guy that can lead that, because you're right, it's a tough job. And then you can, have your analyst or pick your former player to come in, and he can be the guy to add commentary to what's going on as well. I think that's probably what you do. Find the former player, find your host that can keep things moving at a very good pace, and then have your player there to give analysis as they're bouncing back and forth between games. Like, that's something I would watch. I would tune in and watch that on a regular basis. No question about it. Can you think of anyone off the current ESPN roster that you would you'll point to and say that person would be perfect for the job?
No, I think more of guys they used to have that they've let go that might be good at it. You have to have somebody, I think, who's not only quick on his feet, but fairly glib and kind of a funny guy, because that would, I think you'd have to have a sense of humor to be bopping back and forth between those games and be able to slide something funny in once in a while. But it would be fun to watch if the right person was hosting it.
Now, who is the guy? Do we know what his status is yet? Who's the guy that works for ESPN that comes on? He's on with Scott Van Pelt a lot, and he used to play down in Miami. Good shooter. He's got a nice tan, good-looking guy.
Tim Legler?
Great analyst. Huh?
Tim Legler.
Yeah, Legler. Yeah. What's Legler's status? Are you going to bring him back, or is he a casualty?
Well, no, they were talking about bringing him back and making him their lead analyst. Now that J.J. Redick is coaching, they need to fill that chair, and I think Legler would have been better than J.J. in the first place. I mean, he's really a smart guy. I don't know, though. I wonder if that job wouldn't require a skilled TV guy, because you got the producer in your ear all the time telling you, we're going here, we're going here, we're going here. And boy, those are tough jobs.
I would like to see Legler taking over for Redick. I think Legler is terrific. I've been a big fan of his for a long period of time.
Yep.
But what I like about him is that he breaks down the game, complex matters of the game, in a very simple form that I can understand. And I like his energy, and I think he truly loves basketball. Like, I like listening to Legler. I really do.
The thing about him, too, is he's not afraid to tackle something that he sees going on in the game that other people would say, oh, that's too complicated for the average fan. See, I don't think they respect the fans enough now. I think people who watch a lot of NBA are very, very up to date on what dribble handoffs and pick and rolls and all these things are. And you could take it another level from that and show coverages or show the way the offense is attacking and bring people into something that they don't know about. There's so much stating the obvious now among those analysts. They're supposed to be analyzing the game, but they're just kind of stating the obvious. Oh, yeah, that was a good timeout. Oh, okay, whatever.
Boy, one thing I've noticed over the last few years, whether it's football or basketball, a lot of fans and comments and the questions they ask, like, I think fans now are smarter about the game and an understanding of the game on a different level, no matter what the sport is. And so I think disrespecting the fans is crazy because, they watch the game and they know what's going on. And I don't think you should insult their intelligence. People know what's going on when they watch the games. They see it.
Yeah, and that's why a guy like Legler would be good, because he can take you to that next level and make it simple enough that anybody could understand it.
Well, why didn't the Lakers hire Tim Legler to be their coach?
Because he didn't have a podcast with LeBron.
Oh, that's a good point. He wasn't connected with LeBron.
That's right.
And Legler wouldn't have been on board with drafting Bronny either. That's a problem.
Yeah, I think you're right.
All right, Big Ten Media Day, the Oregon Ducks. They really did make a splash this week, Godfather. We both came away very impressed with Dan Lanning. I just like the way that he represented the school and talking about his team. And he didn't take the arrogant, brash approach. He took more of a, I'm not going to say humble, but a quiet confidence and almost a thankfulness to be a part of the conference. And then the way he looked at all the other teams in the competition, looking forward to the challenges that lied ahead for them. I just thought the way he dealt with that and the way he handled himself on that stage with all the eyeballs on him, I think it continues to show his growth as a head coach, but more importantly, as an ambassador for the school and being able to communicate their mission, their goals, their desire, and what they want to be as men and as a football team. And so I got to give major props to Dan Lanning. Very impressed with the way he handled himself in Indianapolis. What was your takeaway?
Yeah, I liked it a lot, Chad. I think he's a very intelligent man who has the confidence to get in front of a group like that and know exactly what to say and how to say it. He spoke very fast, very confidently. He mentioned a lot of people. He gave people, I think, a real favorable impression of not only the football program, but the school itself and a lot of the good things that's going on that campus. And I think it was almost a recruiting tool. If you're a kid, a high school kid, you're listening to him, it's like, that sounds like a pretty good place to go. And I think he's always recruiting. Those guys, they're always recruiting. Not only high school kids, but guys on other teams that might want to go somewhere else. So in that way, too, it was a big success, I thought.
Yeah, it really was. And to hear Dylan Gabriel, talk about his decision and the excitement that he has, I just think he's one motivated football player right now. One, because he wants to win a championship with the Ducks. He wants to showcase what he can do to improve his skills and his standing with NFL scouts so he can, put himself in a position to be drafted higher than the 7th round. And I like when players like that have motivation, but more importantly, experience. 49 career starts under his belt in college football, and he's bringing that load of experience to the Oregon offense. And that's after losing Bo Nix. It doesn't get much better than that. But 49 starts, man, there's nothing he hasn't seen on the college football field. You got to love that if you're Dan Lanning.
Yeah, for sure. It's a real comfortable thing for them. And I think you can tell how confident he is about what's upcoming for them. I think he thinks people have no idea how good they are going to be. And he doesn't need to say it. He's smart enough to know if they're going to be that good, they'll show it. They'll prove it.
All right, when we come back, Dwight and I are going to be hanging out together on Saturday. We want you to join us. We'll tell you what that's all about next on the Rip City Drive. All right, Godfather, another day and more attrition. I mentioned in the update, Darian Kendrick, the top corner for the LA Rams, he went down with an ACL tear, which is unfortunate. I mean, this is the type of stuff I hate this time of year. I don't like seeing quality football players go down and lose their season because of injury. And then how about Lamar Jackson not even making it through his first day at training camp, where he left the field about an hour in because he wasn't feeling well and looked weary. And I just wonder, these players, can you imagine that transition of going from off-season work into training camp, and all of a sudden you're out there in, your gear, and you're out there in the sun and the heat, and you have to grind? Like, that's got to be a tough transition. But I don't think Jackson's hurt. I just think he was maybe under the weather, not feeling so well. But, man, you get those football pads on, you get out there in the heat and start doing work, you're like, I don't need this, man. I feel sick.
Yeah, that's one of the worst things about football at all levels. Even the high school kids have to get out in often the hottest part of the summer and get ready for their season that ends in snow or hard rain and low temperatures. It's crazy. And these stories have cropped up for years, and back to the days, remember the days, Chad, when coaches didn't allow players to drink water? As strange as that seems now, that used to be a thing. No water. No.
Ridiculous.
Rinse your mouth out with water. That's fine. Don't drink it. You'll get sick. Oh, God.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. But that was the old school train of thought, the mentality, right?
Yeah. They didn't know any better,
This is from the Ravens offensive coordinator, Todd Monken. Quote, "We're going to have to work him back in for sure." And he said that with a smile. I know I'm just being kind of a smartass. You'll have to ask him how he feels, but he was in great shape in the meetings. When we were on the field at the start of practice, he said he was feeling pretty good. So there you go. We just got to hope that the majority of these guys can make it through camp without these hideous knee injuries and other ailments or injuries that are going to keep them off the field for a long period of time, man, because we need healthy quarterbacks. We need healthy players for the best football possible. Now, I made a list during the break, Godfather. Duck fans, they should be excited about Dylan Gabriel because he's dynamite and he's going to be a terrific player. But my top 5 Oklahoma quarterbacks of all time, this is my list, my personal list. Jamel Holloway, number 1. He won the championship wishbone quarterback back in '85. Josh Heupel, number 2. He led them to an undefeated season in 2000 when the Sooners won a championship. Number 3 would be Kyler Murray, followed by Baker Mayfield, and Dylan Gabriel is on my list. Number 5, my top 5 Oklahoma quarterbacks of all time.
Wow.
That's how much I love the guy. And I want you to hear this from Media Day. He was asked about the transition going from Oklahoma to Oregon, an offense that definitely fits his skill set because he's very similar to how he plays like Bo Nix did, and he was asked about that transition. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I'll say this, just watching last year, I think you have a clear kind of vision of what it could look like operating at a high level, and I think that's, very encouraging for a quarterback, let alone myself, being able to play in that and see what they accomplished last year and kind of go do it for myself and with this team. But I think, kind of the adjustment has been, from the McDonald's menu, one word, ordering a number 1 with a Coke to, potentially a Bible verse, remembering that. But it's been good for me. I've played in a bunch of different systems, learned a lot, played through a lot of concepts, so that has definitely helped me. But just speaking the same language, that's something that, I continue to emphasize and effectively communicate with one another. It's something that's hard to do, easy to say, but, we're focused on that. I think, early on there was some challenge, but I think that May, June, and July just took full advantage of it and feel really comfortable about it.
That Bible verse.
All right, what do you think is the most difficult transition? Is it getting used to your teammates, Godfather, or is it just adjusting to the new terminology as a quarterback when you're picking up a new offense, a different system than what you're accustomed to the last 2 years?
That's a tough question, Chad. I think, though, a guy with his personality isn't worried too much about his teammates. They'll gravitate toward him in no time. I think the whole system thing, when you start thinking about all the terminology a quarterback needs to learn, and it seems every coach has a different name for every different play they run, and this might be a little more, the playbook might be a little thicker at Oregon than what he's used to. So I think that requires a bit of study to get all that stuff down in a reasonable amount of time because he's got to be out there in the field and telling other people where to be and what to do.
Yeah, I think the terminology, the thing is for the quarterback, there's so much pressure on those starting quarterbacks to be able to learn the offense, understand the offense. And the reason why the quarterbacks have to know the offense inside and out is because they're not just out there trying to figure out where to go with the football, but they have to direct their teammates to make sure they're in the right spot and they understand exactly what they're doing. And that's the pressure there. So my guess is a guy like Dillon Gabriel, much like Bo Nix or one of those top-notch quarterbacks, right? Once they get the terminology down and they understand the offense inside and out, then it becomes easier for them because they can connect with their teammates, but also direct them on the field to know where they need to be. And you and I both know that sometimes you got receivers out there, maybe it's a back or an offensive lineman, they don't know the playbook quite the way that the quarterback does. And so having that extra coach out there like Gabriel to direct, I think that's a major advantage.
No question about it. And obviously, quarterbacks today, there's no dummies out there. They've got to be so smart and so quick and so able to make such quick decisions before the play and during the play and after the play. It's incredible what is expected out of a quarterback. And then you throw in all these RPOs now and all the decisions they have to make after the ball is snapped. It's just an incredibly difficult position to play.
We talk a lot about Dan Lanning and the impact he's having, but what a hire that was to bring in Will Stein. I mean, just the way that he was able to work with Bo Nix last year. Like, I'm excited to see Gabriel and Stein together and to see what that might become this year with the offense. I think Stein's a very innovative mind, but a bright young mind on the offensive end who, we saw it last year with Nix, being able to scheme up some great plays to put him in a position and the rest of the guys in the offense to have success. I like young guys like that who are innovative on the offensive end because it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. A lot of fun to watch. I can't wait, really. It's going to be so exciting to see how I think the offense will be somewhat different this year based on, the different style of quarterback and what they have in store. We won't see it they'll keep everything under cover for the first couple games of the season.
Yeah.
Right?
What are you most interested in with Dillon Gabriel?
Are they going to design running plays for him? Are they going to call runs for him? Because he is a good runner. Or are they going to keep it? I think they'll have to roll him out more than keep him in the pocket because of his height. So I think we'll see different things, and I'm anxious to see that. I want to see how quick he is, too.
Yeah, you want to see how quick he is. That's why I think you're going to notice the big difference with him is, when he's on the field in the run game. I think that's where you're going to notice the pop, and especially in the red zone with his ability to run and the vision he's got. Because you know how it is with the defense, right? You've got 11 guys on defense, and they're all paying attention to their cues. But the one thing that you can't account for sometimes that can really put a stress on the defense is a quarterback that can move and run with purpose. And when you get a guy in that situation where the defender has to think, is he scrambling? Is he going to run? Like I like putting defenders in a position where they're not really sure what's going on, and you can get them in a bind mentally, and that's where a quarterback can take advantage of that. And that's what a guy like Dillon Gabriel does, man. He'll twist you up inside because you're so worried about his ability to move around and pick up yards with his legs that he'll get a defender out of position, and then boom, he can go over the top for a big play. I like that.
Well, certainly a weapon that, they didn't. I mean, I thought Bo Nix was a serviceable runner. He could scramble. He was fine. But this kid takes it to a different level. They haven't had that in a while. In the past, they have had some pretty good runners at quarterback. I'm anxious to see Dillon Gabriel and how he stacks up to the ones that have come previously.
Yeah, and I think with Nix and maybe Herbert before him, don't you think in those final years at Oregon they were trying to be somewhat reserved in how much they ran the quarterback?
Oh, yeah.
They were trying to protect him, right?
Right.
I'm hoping that Gabriel's willing to run, and based on what I know of his mentality, I don't think he's going to shy away from that type of activity, because if you have a quarterback who's willing to run and you have those design runs, that can open up the offense to so many different types of things. And for a creative guy like Will Stein, when you have a quarterback that's willing to run and you can utilize that as a weapon, I mean, you can tear defenses apart with that. And that's really what it comes down to. So hopefully Gabriel will be willing to continue to do what he's done over the last couple of years at Oklahoma, and that showcases his willingness to take off with the football. And then when contact comes, I mean, he's strong, man. Like if you try to arm tackle Gabriel, he'll break through it. Like I said, he says he's 6 feet, maybe 6 feet tall, but over 200 pounds. He's a stocky dude. He's strong, Godfather.
Yeah, Chad, you talked about protecting especially Herbert. I remember that entire senior season of his, and fans were just crying for him to run, and he didn't run much until they got to the Rose Bowl, and his running was the difference in winning that Rose Bowl. He was a terrific runner in that game, and you saw what he had, but they were just, they put the leg irons on him during the season, and they finally took him off in the Rose Bowl.
There's no question about it. All right, let's take a listen to this. The last time that an NBA game was on NBC, and we're going to get NBA on NBC again next year in 2025 because they're one of the new partners that will join forces with the NBA along with Disney and Amazon. I miss these days where we had the eloquent opening to an NBA game. This is from the finals, June 12, 2002, Game 4 between the Lakers and Nets, and Bob Costas on the call.
The Los Angeles Lakers have been so good of late, they have people talking about a dynasty. So let's review. George Mikan led the Minneapolis Lakers to 5 championships in 6 seasons. When the game's first great big man retired, the dynasty went with him. Bill Russell and the Boston Celtics set the standard for all major pro sports, winning 8 straight titles and 11 in 13 seasons. Michael Jordan became the face of the modern NBA with Chicago's first three-peat. Then suddenly he left the court, only to return and rebuild the dynasty. Now, the Los Angeles Lakers chase their piece of history, their place in the argument. Behind Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, they have dispatched all challengers, winning the past 2 titles. Now, as the game's true giant continues his dominance, with the league's most electric scorer at his side, the Lakers close in on a sweep of the overpowered New Jersey Nets. A coach who led the NBA's last great team guides them, and only time stands in their way. 48 minutes from a convincing three-peat. It's not a question of whether the Los Angeles Lakers will celebrate this year's NBA championship, but how many titles they can run off to determine their ultimate place in NBA history. Game 4, next.
Hey, Godfather, how good is that, man, with the old school open with Bob Costas narrating into the music with Round Ball Rock? That's what I'm talking about right there.
Chad, they don't do that anymore, and they should. That opening monologue sets a scene better than anything else they could do, especially, and I'm sure Bob wrote it probably, something like that, so eloquent, so well stated, combining history with today. Wonderful stuff. And like I say, I wish that was done in today's world.
Why'd they get away from that?
Oh, I don't know. I think they decided pictures are better than words, and so they open up with a lot of shots of the arena and the close-up shots of the players warming up, all that kind of stuff, and maybe getting people geeked up more. They always think showing excited fans make the fans at home more excited. I've never really bought into that. It never worked on me, but I just think stating everything that's at stake in that game is a real cool way to set it up. Costas really did make you want to watch that for reasons other than knowing who won, because everybody knew who was going to win. But the whole idea, this is another step in a major dynasty of this team that's had some dynasties before. That's good stuff.
Yeah, and CBS used to do it with Brent Musburger.
Yeah.
It was a well-directed Lakers attack that captured the first 2 games of the NBA Finals. Los Angeles was impressive with their passing and relentless with their running as they overwhelmed a hobbled Celtics team. It was obvious the defending champions were vulnerable, and there were whispers of a sweep. But Boston had other ideas, and they became apparent in Game 3. The unstoppable Laker fast break suddenly ran into roadblocks as the Celtics played with renewed intensity. The heroes included the probable and the great Larry Bird, and the improbable and reserve center Greg Kite, whose tireless labor in the trenches helped spark their victory. Boston's message was clear, and the Lakers took notice. This series is far from over. James Worthy and the Lakers found the bounces a little hard in the Boston Garden, while the hometown bounces found the occasional help of those little green leprechauns.
I mean, Godfather, that's the best, man.
Anytime you can glorify Greg Kite in the open, I'm all for it. Greg Kite.
All right, let's go out to the phones. Mitch in New Jersey's out there, our good friend. Mitch, what's going on, buddy? What's on your mind?
How's it going, Chad? Dwight, I hope everything's good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Hopefully it's cooled down over there. I'm interested in the Big Ten. I think USC and Oregon and Washington make a lot of noise. I like the quarterbacks, as usual, Miller Moss. I like the wide receivers. And, of course, the Ducks just keep bringing in talent from California. They're snatching Lincoln Riley's. They're making him look bad. He's going to have some pressure this year, Lincoln Riley. I think 4 teams can make it from the Big Ten, maybe 5, depending on how Michigan is. Now it's 12 teams. I wish it stayed the same. But anyway, what you do with all this money that's flying around with NIL and all that stuff. I agree with you, Chad. Stay 5 years. You can work the rest of your life. Stay 5 years. Make as much money as you can. Okay, I think I squeezed in quite a bit. Probably you guys, hopefully you have your seatbelts on, fasten your belt. Or I hope you enjoyed the ride here.
No, we did. We love you, Mitch. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah.
Boy, I wonder how much pressure's on Lincoln Riley this year, Godfather.
Has to be some, Chad. They're not messing around anymore. They gotta play with the big boys now, and I don't think USC's been exactly what Lincoln Riley had in mind so far.
No, first couple of years, by their standards, a disaster, and we'll see if they're able to adjust and be able to handle the step up in competition with the Big Ten. But I don't know; it's going to be tough. Oh my goodness. I don't envision a good year for USC. I think at the top I think it's a battle between Ohio State and Oregon.
Yeah.
That's how I see the Big Ten playing out. It's a battle between Ohio State and Oregon, and that's why that game at Autzen is going to be so awesome. It's going to be great.
Give me another team. One more. 3 teams. So you got Ohio State and Oregon. Who's that third team that could mess it up?
Michigan. But they lost a lot of talent.
They did. I'm just thinking old Jed Fish up there in Washington, man, he's a good coach. By the end of the year, I'll bet they're pretty good.
I am a massive Jed Fish fan. I mean, we've talked about his resume, but he's worked with the best of the best in terms of coaches. He knows the game really well. He's a great recruiter. I applaud Washington for their ability to land Jed Fish after losing their head coach to Alabama, and the work that Fish did down in Arizona was truly remarkable. He turned them around, and next thing you know, they're coming off a season where they get an Alamo victory over Oklahoma. So I think Jed Fish is a great coach. I think he's smart. He knows the game really well, and he does a heck of a job recruiting. So I think Washington did a pretty darn good job of landing a coach, and I think it's just a matter of time. Fish is a lot like Harbaugh. Wherever he goes, just give him time, and he'll find a way to turn it around. That's how good he is.
Yeah.
Nothing but respect for Fish.
He's in a place I'm sorry, Chad. He's in a place, too, where he'll be able to recruit. That's a pretty good place to recruit, too.
And they've got resources, too. They're going to be okay.
Yeah.
They may not have Ohio State resources, but they got resources to work with.
That's right.
Washington is not a poor school. Let's just put it that way.
For sure.
All right, we'll come back, and when we do, we got some high fives to hand out, and we'll put a nice little bow on this Thursday afternoon. I hope you're enjoying your time. Don't forget, Justin Myers is going to be live tomorrow morning from Indy for Big Ten Media Days starting at 6 here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Godfather. I want to hand my high five out to Rip City Mike, who chimed in on X and said, I just want to say, Chad and Dwight, you two are the best combo of co-hosts I've ever heard on radio. It has been a pleasure getting to listen to you while I work. Well, Rip City Mike, I appreciate that. And Godfather, the reason why that message is so nice is because a lot of times people go out of their way to tell me how much I suck or how much they're irritated by something I post or an opinion of mine.
Me too.
So for someone to come out and just say, hey, thanks for the work you do, I appreciate that, Rip City Mike. Thank you. That made my night, buddy.
Yeah, Rip City Mike. You're a smart man. I agree with you 100%.
All right, who do you want to hand your high five out to, Shacker?
My high five is going to that big inflatable duck floating on the White River in downtown Indianapolis because, boy, that big sucker made a big impact on the Big Ten this week. And I think it's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love the big duck. And Shacker, did you want to hand one out to the Wienermobile? Or?
I really want to give a high five to Justin Myers. He deserves a high five every day of the week, but what he's doing this week, going to the Big Ten Media Day out in Indy. Great show this morning and another great show coming tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, the work that he and Brendan did, I was gripping and concerned because, he flew out there by himself. He had 2 different sets of equipment, and so I was just hoping that everything logistically would go smooth. And, of course, it didn't go smooth, but he was able to navigate through it. And with the help of the entire team, they were able to get things rolling today, which is great. And it's just nice to know the football season's right around the corner. So big props to Justin and Brendan for their work. And you're right, man, that duck, I still can't get over the size of that duck floating around in the river. That thing's massive, Godfather.
Yeah, and it survived. It looks like it survived the whole week, which is great. I was a little worried somebody might try to do some damage there, but no.
I can't believe a Buckeye fan or a Wolverine fan or someone didn't get to that duck to tear it down.
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost their duty as a member of that school to be able to say, hey, this isn't your conference yet. You're new. We're taking the duck down.
Yeah, right, exactly. Who do you think you are putting this in our river?
I kind of feel like that was Baker Mayfield planting the Oklahoma flag right there in the middle of the stadium there, the horseshoe, when they beat Ohio State. That's kind of what it feels like to me.
It was very similar to that. I didn't think they'd get away with it, honestly. I figured somebody would come down on them about that.
But, man, I can understand why some of these coaches, they're just jealous. Jealousy's it can be a tough thing. But when Dan Lanning is he's no dum-dum. He understands the situation he's in. He's at Oregon with unlimited resources behind him. Why would you want to leave that gig in today's world? Because now with NIL being what it is, Oregon suddenly is a much better landing spot than many other schools across the country because of the resources they have. It makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that, Chad. Not only that, too, I think there's a lot of places in the Southeast Conference that are worse places to live than Eugene, Oregon. And there is something, there is something about that because these guys, their poor families are following them all around the country. I always felt for coaches, kids, and wives. That's a tough life to live. And if you can put them down in an area that's beautiful, where there's rivers and forests and all those things to do, and, a temperate climate to a degree, that's a pretty good deal. It's a good deal for Dan Lanning.
Well, I agree. I grew up in Oklahoma and spent my first 9 years there, and I've gone back many a times to visit family and so forth. The cost of living is very cheap, and they've got a great program there in Oklahoma, in terms of football. But I live in the Northwest now, and I can attest to this. The Northwest is so much better in terms of quality of life with the conditions, the weather, the temperature, the resources. It's a prettier state. It's Eugene, and I've been to Eugene. It's not a bad spot, Godfather. It's nice down there. You spent time at school down there.
Yeah, I did.
You've been down there many a times covering sports. It's great.
Yeah, it is. And it always comes through with Dan Lanning. He always talks about that, how nice it is for his boys and his wife and all that. And they've had outings at the beach, and he plays golf. And it sounds like he's really taking advantage of an area that he might not have seen a lot of areas like that during his coaching career. So it's a good thing.
Well, that's why I think traveling is so nice. And when you get a chance to do it, you should do it because, you grow up, you only know what you know. But when you get out and start to check out different parts of the country, you realize that, there are parts of the country that are so much nicer than what sometimes people will say about it, or you discover these different areas. You're like, hey, I could live here, or I like that, or, that's one of the things I love most about traveling is getting out and seeing these different parts of the country and realizing that there's so many great spots in the US of A, man. It's amazing to me.
Yep.
Like even New York, a lot of people trash on New York, but I just went there. I wouldn't want to live out there because there's just too much humanity, but it's spectacular out there. It's unbelievable.
It is.
I love going to Arizona. People, they freak out thinking about how hot it is down there, but during the summer months it's brutal, but man, they got some beautiful areas down there in the desert. I love it down there. Colorado is spectacular. Everyone thinks that it snows all the time, but that's not necessarily true. They get 300 days of sunshine a year. My brother's living down in Georgia right now. He's a park ranger down there, and he's out in the country away from the city. And I've seen some pictures and stuff like that. I need to get down there and visit because it's beautiful out there. There's a lot of great spots, but Eugene is nice. And Nike money is really nice. And if you're a football coach trying to compete on the national level and you need money to secure players with NIL, Phil Knight is the best friend you could possibly have.
Yeah.
Because he's willing to spend. A lot of guys have money, but a lot of guys don't want to open up the checkbook. They get a little bit tight. When it comes time to pay the bill, they get the penguin arms, Godfather, and they can't reach their pockets. But that's not Phil Knight, man. He's willing to spend.
He's always been that way, too. Whatever you need. And now with the NIL, it's really cleared the decks for him to do whatever needs to be done. Players need money. He can help them out.
People like that, right? Where you go out to dinner and then the check comes and then there's always the guys at the table that get the penguin arms and they, where's my wallet? They can't seem to find it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there were certain guys that used to time their trip to the restroom right about the time. You've seen that, right? Right about the time the check's going to come.
I gotta
I'll
go.
be right back.
I gotta go.
Yeah. 10 minutes later, they come back.
All right, big thanks to Michael Shacker. Justin Myers live from Indy tomorrow morning for Big